Hey Sin City, let's do a little exercise. Think of what maps favor the attacker side and what maps favor the defender side. Got 'em? Okay, why do you think these maps favor one side over the other? Is it the specific angles or choke points, how the meta plays around them? Is it the rotation timings giving one side an advantage? What about things like entry pathing and angle clearing? Okay, let's look at what the data says. So, how'd you do? Did the data back up your thoughts? If not, why? Was it just your own personal biases? Let's see if we can put those biases aside and figure out why the data says these maps favor a specific side. So let's look at an example. By far, Ascent is the most defender-sided map according to the stats. Why do you think this is? First off, I think the design of the map heavily favors the defenders. If you look at the main entrances to both bomb sites, you'll notice that they're tight chokes. This means that the attackers are funneled into tight corridors where they can easily be spammed or hit with util. The defenders can easily stall out a push with a single molly or smoke, buying plenty of time for rotations.
The choke points are pretty small across the board. And not only that, but once you get through those choke points, there is a ton of angles. There's always two directions the defenders can come from. There's a, like a CT or heaven and market or a cat, like door. And on top of that, there's just a lot of space to play on the sites. There's multiple boxes, there's a lot of safe zones, and these are things that aren't as true for a lot of other maps. A lot of other maps, the chokes are bigger and there's less space to play on site. It's just easier to kind of narrow down where a defender could be playing.
And that's just if the defenders are playing passive. If they go on the offensive, we've all been by a perfectly timed Omen Paranoia combo with a swing out A main. Speaking of A main, you also have things like one-way smokes, which give the defenders a huge advantage when taking map control.
A main and B main both tend to have kind of util trades. So by the time you're done doing that, defenders are aware you're there. They're probably rotated over. Are you really able to just force out that choke after? It's generally a true thing about the game, but it's especially true on Ascent. Forces teams to default play the map a lot more.
Another big thing to mention is the barrier locations. At both main entrances, the defenders can quickly take an aggressive line on the chokes. This means the attackers need to burn some utility to force the defenders off these lines before they can even think about trying to establish control over these parts of the map. This leads into another huge part of map balance: info. On Ascent, the defenders are able to get info super easily. We've established you can have control over both main entrances off the rip, which leaves only middle. And in middle, you run into the same problems. The arch is another narrow choke, where the defenders can play on either side, meaning you need to spend util to clear it out, or make some kind of coordinated peek to trade out the frag. If you get past arch, you have to deal with potential defenders playing in market or pizza. Hell, they could even be jump spotting from defender spawn. So that's another layer of util you need to use if you want to take control of mid safely. And all of this is ignoring the chance the defenders have an op holding the line, in which case, good luck. If the defending opper is hitting their shots, you basically need to burn a smoke or flashes to get them off the line. Another thing to consider is rotation timing. On Ascent, if you take the safest rotation path, the rotation timing significantly favors the defending side. For the defense to rotate from one site to the other through spawn, it takes 11.5 seconds. For the attackers to rotate through spawn, it takes 21 seconds. Even if you take the risk and run through mid, it still takes about 16 seconds. So it's much easier for the defense to reposition from one site to the other. The last thing I want to mention is the meta team compositions on Ascent. The standard composition on Ascent is Jett, KO, Sova, Omen, and Killjoy. That said, there's been some flexibility around the Killjoy and Sova. During the Taeho meta, a lot of teams swap Sova for Taeho. You'll also see some teams replace the KJ with Cypher or Vice, and if you're Sen and want to throw your games, Deadlock. But for the most part, this is what has been considered meta on Ascent for years. Why? Well, let's go down the list. First, you have Jett. Remember those tight chokes I was complaining about? Well, on the attack, Jett helps you break them. You can dash in and draw crosshairs away from the choke, buying space for the rest of the team to get through. On the defense, Jett is a fantastic agent to have an op on since she can take the shot and dash out. Also, on the attack and retake, having the ability to updraft lets you take some unexpected fights with your Blade Storm. KO is fantastic because of how tight the map is. With a good knife lineup, you can get info as well as disable a defensive hold or stall out the attack. On top of that, his mollies are great in a post-plant or for breaking utility. Sova is much the same. His recon dart is always great for getting info, his utility helps out in the post plant, shock darts break util, and his recon drone is a safe way to clear out all those tight chokes we talked about. Then you have Omen. Omen's always great. His smokes are some of the best in the game since they replenish and you can specifically place them, allowing you to set up some one-ways. His TP gives you the mobility to play in different angles and get out of sticky spots. His blind is amazing given all the tight chokes. And with his ult, well, on the attack, it lets you scout out bomb sites before you execute, or on the defense, you can quickly rotate when the attackers execute. Lastly, you have Killjoy, who can lock down sites with her mollies, get info with her turret, catch lurks with her alarm bot, and her ult basically gives you a bomb site for free, so you don't even have to deal with those chokes.
It was a very strong comp on defense, even though it's double initiator, just because of the map's design, because of what I've been talking about. You get a lot of options for contesting and refighting the mains and for retakes, but you can also still hold sites pretty viably with that comp compared to double initiator on a lot of other maps. And then once you get to the attack half, you're just glad to have extra tools. Having KO alongside Sova allows you to default mid to really quickly win mains and then go default mid after. You need to be able to take and get a lot of info on space on the map on attack because of how it works. So it's always nice to have two initiators for that. Obviously we see a lot of different style comps right now, but that's kind of the classic. As for Cypher coming back in, I think a big part was that it was really hard to take B main on attack because of the spammable wall. At that point, you might as well take an agent like Killjoy who's more defense sided but can passively hold pushes. Now that the spam wall is gone on B main and you can be more aggressive and take individual space, Cypher's a lot better at that. You can cage in the middle of B main, you can throw your camera up, and you can end up winning B main by yourself.
So you see, every one of these agents plays a specific role on both the attack and defense, making it the optimal composition on Ascent. So with all these factors making Ascent defender-sided, why is it still in the game? Well, who's to say having a map favor one side over the other is a bad thing? There's been a long history of maps in tactical FPS games that heavily favor one side, and they've made for some of the most iconic games in history.
Yeah, I think it's good that maps have diversity in whether they're even or attack-sided or defense-sided. It lets teams build an identity and lean into it with their map pool and with their veto. It makes vetoes more interesting. I think it helps kind of build storylines, whereas if every map was just even, it doesn't really feel like a map pool and a veto is as much of a playground to kind of lean into your strengths. And yeah, I just think it makes the game more exciting.
Remember 2022 Loud? Across 2022, they played Ascent 17 times and won 16 of those games. They had a 74% round win rate on the defense. Saucy was insane on Sova, Hankata on Omen, Aspas on Jet. I mean, come on. That team was terrifying on Ascent, and that's all people were talking about during the grand finals of Champs vs. Optic. And Optic managed to take them to OT. If the map wasn't so defender-sided, this storyline wouldn't have been so exciting. But one key thing to remember is, these stats are from pro games. It's a skewed sample because we're talking about the very best players, coordinated and playing in their optimal positions. This isn't your rank game where you have 5 uncoordinated idiots running through smokes and team flashing each other. So you should probably take this with a grain of salt if you're applying it to your own games. That said, it's still an interesting thought experiment, and honestly, the kind of thing an in-game leader in the making should be thinking about. So if this kind of thing gets you thinking about all the possible solutions, why not try putting together a team for Premier and try your hand at IGL? Maybe you're the next John QT in the making. Okay, maybe not, but everyone has to dream, right?